Welcome to Craigdarroch Castle. Come on into the main hall and take a look at our beautiful collection of original woodwork. White oak from Arkansas. It makes this beautiful staircase here, 87 steps to the tower, 4.5 floors up to the highest point in Victoria when the house was built in 1890.
Even while under construction, neighbors called it a castle.
Mr. Dunsmuir is one of the richest and most influential men on the Pacific Coast. In financial circles and in Canadian politics, he is recognized as a powerful factor. The story of his life reads like a romance. The Daily Examiner, San Francisco.
Robert Dunsmuir was the son of an Ayrshire family of coal miners and managers. With brighter prospects promised by the Hudson's Bay Company, he departed Scotland in 1850 with his pregnant wife Joan and 2 young daughters. The family and other miners traveled first to Fort Vancouver on the Columbia, where son James was born. Then on to Fort Rupert, near today's Port Hardy, a part of a new British colony, Vancouver Island.
Fort Rupert in 1851 was a rough place. It was described as being a place that had fleas without limit. And Robert and Joan occupied a small cabin and dirt floor. It was very rough, stockade around the fort. And then the initial coal mining wasn't really mining at all. They were just scraping at the banks of the beach.
Vancouver Island was a colony administered by Hudson's Bay factor and later governor, Sir James Douglas. 300 Europeans lived around the newly settled Fort Victoria, with a handful situated further up island. Virtually everyone worked for the company.
It was a unique experiment. You had a private enterprise company running a colony on behalf of the Crown. So the British government still had a presence in the North Pacific after the loss of the Oregon Territory in 1846, but the British taxpayer wasn't charged with the maintenance of this colony.
By 1854, the Dunsmuirs had moved to the tiny village of Nanaimo. Robert worked semi-independently and continued to search for a rich vein of coal to call his own. In 1869, fortune smiled.
I came across a ridge of rock which I knew to be the strata overlying the lowest seam that had as yet been discovered here. A short time afterwards, I sent 2 men to prospect, and in 3 days discovered a seam of coal 3.5 feet in thickness, 30 feet below the tops of the ridge. Robert Dunsmuir.
Robert and Joan arrived here with virtually nothing. They made this enormous discovery of coal in 1869, and in a very short time, by the 1880s, they were millionaires. And in fact, the San Francisco Examiner in 1888 said that they called Robert Dunsmuir Canada's Jay Gould. They estimated his net worth at between $15 and $20 million.
The Dunsmuir's second son, Alexander, was the first white baby born in Nanaimo. In 1878, only 25 and described by all as clever, Alec journeyed to San Francisco to manage the family coal distribution operation. Older son James remained in Departure Bay near Nanaimo to manage the coal loading dock, while Robert Dunsmuir, his wife and younger daughters, eventually moved south to Fairview in Victoria's James Bay, where some of the established gentry viewed them as above their station.
Being Scottish, but didn't have the same cachet as being English in Victoria in the 1880s. So, there may have been that kind of ethnic rivalry too.
Dunsmuir served as the Nanaimo member in the Provincial Legislative Assembly, where he was a sharp public speaker, and not without a sense of humor, as evidenced when he debated a bill to regulate opium in the province.
I have no objections to support the bill if the use of whisky, beer and tobacco was likewise prohibited. People who used these articles knew what they were about, and the consequences were upon their own heads.
In some circles, they called him the Honourable Bomb. Detractors dubbed him King Grant, or the Duke of Wellington. He had his critics for using a heavy hand with